What is up, Sopranos fans? Kino here. About 4 years ago, I did a live stream where I ranked all the episodes of The Sopranos from S tier all the way down to D tier. Now, that was really fun. I enjoyed doing that live with you guys. It was the first time we ever live streamed on this channel. But looking back, that stream is a little bit long. I tended to ramble on because it was my first time doing it. And I decided I wanted to redo the tier list, but do it as a video so that anyone who wants to see how I rank all the episodes can just watch a quicker video rather than having to sit through the entire stream. I did this on tiermaker.com. I will link that in the description. Anyone who wants to make their own tier ranking, feel free to do so and maybe post it in the Discord. Links for that will all be in the description. There are about 86 episodes of The Sopranos, so I have to go kind of quickly or else we're going to be here for a long time. So I'll give you guys a very brief explanation of where I put all of the episodes, but we're going to move through this kind of fast here. So let's switch over. These are also all the thumbnails from my Soprano log videos. I just uploaded them all into the tier maker here, so it might take me a second to find some of these episodes. But we're going to start with the pilot. Now, if you guys saw the live stream, I had a list already done. These might change slightly depending on how I feel about it 4 years later, but I think it'll be pretty similar to the live stream. But pilot episode, I am going to put this in B. Now, I know that's kind of heresy for some people. You know, it's the pilot episode. Some people consider it to be one of the best in the series. Personally, for me, I feel like it's one of the weaker episodes of the series. Season 1, in particular, kind of has some tonal issues where it feels very different from the rest of the show before they kind of got their feet and figured out what the show's tone was going to be. But the pilot episode in particular, I find very tonally inconsistent. You know, you've got scenes where he's like running over the guy in the middle of a crowded street where later on the crimes would tend to be a little bit more realistic. They tried to hide it a little bit more. The music choices throughout the episode, very Goodfellas inspired. The show was leaning heavily on the Goodfellas inspiration, but again, before they found their real identity here. The fact that Tony is referred to as the boss of North Jersey, before he's, in the second episode, demoted back down to captain. Overall, not a bad episode, but I think not one of the strongest episodes of the show. Moving on here, we have 46 long, which is up here. Only episode of the series to ever do a cold open, too, which is interesting. I don't know why this one in particular. It was filmed about a year after the pilot was shot, so they had figured out a little bit more of the series before this episode. I think it's a strong episode. You know, we got the plot with Christopher, Brendan Falone, the suits, the conflict with Junior, the establishment of Jackie Aprile Sr. as the boss of the family. Again, I'll probably put it in B here. It's a pretty good episode. Not one of the strongest in the entire series, but pretty solid all around and nothing, bad about it. All right, next we move on to Denial, Anger, and Acceptance. Third episode of this series. This is where we're going to start to establish, the conflict between Junior and Tony, which is going to be a major plot point of the first season. We got the assassination of Brendan Falone. He wasn't with us for long, but, as far as Christopher's sidekick characters go, he's pretty memorable. Overall, I'll give Denial, Anger, and Acceptance probably a B2 here. I think it's a pretty good episode, sets up a lot of stuff, but not necessarily the top tier. And again, I am grading these episodes on a curve, so just because a lot of these episodes are going to be B and C tier, that's where the majority of the episodes have to be. If an episode's going to be an S tier or an A tier, it's got to be really, really good. And there's not going to be too many D tier episodes just because The Sopranos is a great show. There's not that many bad episodes. Meadowlands, again, setting up some good stuff. We have kind of the first real episode that deals with the children. We got AJ and Meadow kind of dealing with their father. Mostly AJ dealing with the knowledge that his father is a gangster. That's going to be a big theme. The family angle is one of the things that separates The Sopranos from a lot of other gangster movies and shows. I think Meadowlands, I'll probably go a little bit higher. I think I'll give this an A for the series just because we got a lot of important stuff in this episode. The death of Jackie Aprile, that's going to be a very important thing. Again, the kid's subplot. The fact that Junior becomes the boss in name of the family, that's going to be a really big thing moving forward. So I'll give Meadowlands an A. Next, we move on to college. I'm a little biased for this episode because if you guys know my channel, you know that this is my biggest video. Before I even did the Soprano logs, I did a video on the episode College specifically and its impact on television history. I think this is the episode that really solidifies what The Sopranos is. It defines characters like Tony, Meadow. It established that Tony Soprano is this anti-hero protagonist, one of the first ones we have ever seen really like this. Murders a guy in cold blood, essentially. I'm going to give College an S ranking. I know some people don't like it as much. They don't like the Carmela subplot as much in this episode where she's, almost sleeping with Father Phil. But really, for what it did for The Sopranos and establishing it as a precedent in television history, I think you can't beat it. S tier episode for sure. Next up, we have Pax Soprana. Pax Soprana, I'm going to give an A tier ranking too. I think this is a really good episode. Last episode, College, we focused a lot on the family side of the conflict. Now we're focusing a lot on the gangster side, again, setting up a lot of important plot points here. This is the first introduction of the FBI as well as an antagonistic force. This is the first time we really see them. It's shot in a great way where we don't actually meet the FBI agents. The episode ends with them taking pictures, and it's very mysterious, and the song that plays at the end is fantastic. A tier episode. I really enjoy Pax Soprana. Very entertaining. Then we move on to Down Neck. The first episode that kind of really focuses on Tony's childhood. Again, we're comparing and contrasting AJ's childhood with Tony's, recurring thing the show would do. I think the flashbacks are great. I think it establishes a lot about Tony's upbringing, Livia as a mother figure, Johnny Boy as a father figure. I'll give Down Neck probably a B. I don't know if I put it in A before here, but I think it's a very solid episode. I think there's some episodes later that would handle the flashbacks and Tony's childhood a little bit better than Down Neck. I think, it kind of bounces all over the place this episode, but solid episode, really like it. Next, we have The Legend of Tennessee Moltisanti. First real kind of Christopher-focused episode where we're really honing in on his character, what he wants. He has these big dreams of being someone important, being an important gangster, being a writer. He's being pulled in a lot of different directions. The dream sequences, again, that's going to be an important motif of the show moving forward. And it's funny that Christopher, actually, it's the first episode that deals with dream sequences. It's about Christopher's dream, not Tony's dream specifically, but that's always been an interesting call out to me. I'm going to give probably a B tier just because I think they would do this storyline a little bit better in season 2, which we'll talk about when we get to it. Solid Christopher focused episode, but I think they'll handle it a little bit better in future seasons. Next up, we have Boca. A very funny episode. Again, the whole conflict between Tony and Junior coming down to oral sex, going down on a woman. Very Sopranos, that kind of irreverent tone of the series would be something they deal with a lot in the future. Boca, I'm going to give an A to. I think it sets up a lot of stuff, and again, just helping the Sopranos establish that tone where, again, it's going to come down to stupid things. Tony even has a line later where he says, "Cunnilingus and psychiatry brought us to this," and David Chase said he was almost self-conscious about that line just because he thought it was so on the nose. But yeah, I'm gonna give Boca an A tier. I think it sets up a lot of great stuff here, and we're kind of getting into the end game here of season 1. Now, next up, one of the more controversial episodes of the series, A Hit is a Hit, which a lot of people hate this episode, and I tend to agree. I think the plot with Massive Genius is kind of weird. David Chase has a lot of history of writing these plots about the music industry, about Black people's role in the music industry. He loves rock and roll, and this is an important plot point that he would reference all the time in his work. I have a video talking about David Chase's shows and movies and stuff before The Sopranos. Go check that out. But this whole thing about African Americans and music is something that's very important to him, but I think he doesn't really handle it that well in this episode. I think Massive Genius is a weird one-off character. If you're gonna do this, why not integrate him more into the show? Why not make him more of an important part of the show? So Overall, hit is a hit. I'm gonna give that a D. I think it is one of the weakest episodes of the show. Not completely terrible, but again, also the whole thing with like the band that Christopher is helping. I just think it's weird, and I think they would handle stuff like this better in future episodes. Next one, Nobody Knows Anything Here. Big episode because it's setting up Pussy being an informant, which at the time of making this episode, they actually did not know whether Pussy was an informant or not, and when he disappeared, they actually didn't know where he went to, and later on, once season 1 had aired, David Chase realized he needed to go back and actually answer that question. So this episode directly sets up a big part, almost the majority of season 2. So just for that reason alone, I think that has to go into A tier. It sets up a lot of important stuff, and it's a great episode overall. Very tense too. Now, next up, we have Isabella, the first Tony dream focus episode here. I like Isabella. Do I think that some of the dream sequences would be handled a little bit better in future seasons? Yes, I will say that. What Isabella represents, I think, is important for Tony. This whole kind of concept of motherhood, him dealing with depression is also a big thing in this episode, which again, we'll see a lot in future episodes. Do I think the way Tony kind of acts in this episode seems a little bit out of character to how he would act in future seasons? Yes. But I still think Isabella is a great episode of digging into Tony's psychology. The hit that goes on in this episode, while a little clunky, a little weird, I think I think it's a great introduction to kind of the dangers of this world. I'm gonna give Isabella an A. I think it's a great episode. And last up for season 1, I Dream of Jeanie Cusamano. The season 1 finale, I think, is amazing. I think the ending scene where he's talking to his family is an incredibly beautiful moment. One of the most beautiful in the entire series. So much so that they would reference it not only once, but twice. So everyone knows that AJ references it in the final episode, but Meadow actually references it in the season 3 finale, which is kind of the midway point of the show. So this is an incredible moment that really kind of defines the rest of the series. So I'm going to give I Dream of Jeanie Cusamano an S tier. I think it's an incredible episode, and this is really where the series kind of finds its legs, and moving forward, we're not going to have the kind of tonal issues moving forward that I've been kind of referencing in season 1. But season 2, episode 1, guy walks into a psychiatrist's office right here. Tony dealing with the fact that he's not in therapy anymore, Melfi's on the run. I find that plot point a little goofy. I think, him having to get her back, it feels a little... I guess that's the one episode that kind of feels a little bit more like season 1, where it's a little bit goofy. I'm going to give Guy Walks into a Psychiatrist's Office either a B or a C tier. We got the introduction of Pussy again, which is going to be a big plot point, but looking back, I don't find this episode that memorable or likable. I think I'm going to give it a C tier. I could see it being a B tier episode, but when I think of what I love about season 2, I don't tend to put this episode that highly. I think of a lot of other episodes in season 2 which are going to be amazing. So I'm just going to give that one a C tier just because we haven't put anything in C yet. But let's move on to the next episode here. Do Not Resuscitate. This episode's kind of weird. The screenshot I have here is Janice fantasizing about Livia dying. This is another one where it sets up a lot of great stuff. I don't tend to think of this episode too highly. Again, I might give this one a C too. I think I probably might have put it higher before. I might have put it on B. But again, this is one of those ones that I think is kind of a lot of setup, and we're going to get a lot of payoff in future episodes. So just from kind of what I'm remembering off the top of my head, I'm going to put it in C tier, but I could see an argument that it deserves to be higher. Now, Toodle-Ooh. The episode title is Toodle-Fucking-Ooh, but I had to not title it that in the YouTube video just because it was going to get demonetized. I think it actually did get demonetized anyway. Richie April, this is a fantastic character. My favorite seasonal character, like one of the guys who's only there for like 1 or 2 seasons. Richie is my absolute favorite. I love him. Setting up this conflict of a guy getting out of prison and kind of bucking against Tony as the boss. That's something they're going to do a lot in future seasons, and this is the first one that really starts that. I think this is one of the defining aspects of season 2 that makes it so fun is that conflict. I think David Proval is fantastic. I'm going to give this one an A. I really, really like this episode. Again, introduces one of my favorite characters, so I got to give it a pretty high rating. Commendatori is up next, the Italy episode. I am going to give this one probably an A too. This is a really fun episode. It's just enjoyable. I like the Tony and Annalisa relationship. I like the fact that she's a woman boss and he's got to kind of like wrap his head around that. The whole thing with Carmela too, dealing with Angie wanting to divorce Pussy and Carmela making about her own feelings about wanting to divorce Tony, I think is fantastic. I think this is a great episode. I could see it being an S tier. I'm going to give it an A just because I think there are some really, really strong episodes that deserve to be S tier, but Commendatori is fantastic. You got the David Chase cameo as well. That's awesome. So I'm gonna give it an A. The same thing is gonna be true of our next episode, Big Girls Don't Cry, the first episode Terrence Winter ever wrote, and I consider him to be probably the greatest writer on The Sopranos besides David Chase, followed by probably Matt Weiner after that. I'm gonna give Big Girls Don't Cry an A too. I think it's a really good episode. I think Christopher's dealing with the feelings about his father through acting, I think that's a great motif. And again, what I was talking about Legend of Tennessee Moltisanti, the themes that they did in that episode, they would expand upon in season 2 and I think do them a little bit better, where it's a little bit more interesting how they integrate it into the story. So obviously Furio comes into this episode. He's introduced to Commendatori, but he comes to America in this episode. He's fantastic, a great addition to the crew. I'm going to give Big Girls Don't Cry an A. Now, The Happy Wanderer is up next. This is an episode I really like. The whole thing with Davy, I think, is a great smaller subplot. I mean, season 2 has like 3 big subplots. They got Pussy being an informant, they got Richie Aprile / Janice, and then they got the Davy subplot. I think Happy Wanderer is a very, very solid episode of how it deals with Tony kind of being this predator figure that kind of preys on people who have weaknesses. I think Davy's a great seasonal character. I think he's a wonderful addition. He plays well off of all the other characters. Plays well off of Richie. Plays well off of Tony. Meadows' friendship with his son, Eric. I'm going to give Happy Wanderer an A too. I think it's just a solid, very enjoyable episode. My favorite line in the series too, by the way. I got the world by the balls, but I can't stop feeling like a fucking loser. That's like my life mantra, that quote. So, got to put that episode pretty high. Next up, we have D-Girl. Very popular episode because of this girl here, Amy Saphir. A lot of people like redheads. I think this is the quintessential episode that is like the Legend of Tennessee Moltisanti. D-Girl does the plot better, and I think it's a great episode for Christopher. Him dealing with, wanting more than just the mafia life, but not kind of willing to commit to that. I think that's just a great, great Christopher episode, and I'm gonna give it an A. I could almost give it an S tier. But again, I'm going to say that for some stronger episodes, but just solid Christopher's development in this episode is fantastic. D-Girl's awesome. Next up, we have Full Leather Jacket. One of the most meme-worthy episodes in the entire series. I think it's great, setting up conflict with Richie and Tony. It's going to be an A. Just for all the reasons I said before. Just solid episode. And again, this is why I love season 2, why it's my favorite season. We just have a string of like A-tier episodes, like back to back to back. There's been not one weak episode in this entire run so far. And that's going to be true of our next episode too, From Where to Eternity. This might be individually my favorite episode of the show. And I've talked about this before. When I was doing my Soprano log series, I'd watch one episode a day and then just make the Soprano logs. And this happened to be on my birthday when I watched this episode, and I watched it with friends. It was a great experience. I got to introduce them to the show. I think this is a really great episode individually too. I love the song that plays at the beginning and end of it. I love Christopher dealing with believing he's going to hell, which kind of ironically would ruin The Many Saints of Newark for me, because I hated the fact that Christopher narrates The Many Saints of Newark from hell. But you can't fault this episode for that. But regardless, this is just an incredible episode. I almost want to put an S tier just because I'm so fond of this episode. You know what? I might put this in S tier. I could see, honestly, probably should be more A, but I love it so much. Tony killing Brendan is a big part. how he leaves AJ to go focus on his mob work. I'm going to give it an S tier. I think I might have given it an A tier in the last rankings, but I think this is a fantastic episode. So I'm going to give it an S tier. Fuck it. It's my list. I'll do what I want. House Arrest. This is a fantastic episode. Again, really enjoyable. This was on my top 10 list just because this is the comfiest episode of The Sopranos. I think, Tony being stuck at home, being bored, the guys kind of calling him to kind of join them, having fun stealing shit. I think that's very comfy. I think Junior's little relationship he has with Catherine Romano is so cute. I wish we had seen more of it. I understand why we can't because Junior's storyline is inherently sad. But that little scene at the end where she puts his mask on and she kisses him on the forehead, just so cute. It ends on this very happy note, while at the same time hinting at something bad's gonna happen because obviously Pussy walks away when the FBI agents come by. But I just love that ending scene so much where Tony's just kind of shooting his shit with the FBI. It establishes his friendship. I just think this is a fantastic episode, extremely comfy, and it's going to be an A tier episode too. And Knight in White Satin Armor. I am debating whether this should be an S or an A tier. The death of Richie Aprile, like the conflict boils over in this episode. It's so fantastic. It's an incredible payoff to everything we've been dealing with Richie in season 2. Honestly, I want to put it in an S. You know what? I might bump From Where to Eternity back down to an A, kind of where it belongs, just because I want to put this in S tier. I think it's fantastic. I think it feels like the final episode of season 2. Like, it really feels like that. Now, I know HBO tends to do these, Game of Thrones did the same thing, where the penultimate episode is where a lot of the conflict happens. Not to say there's not conflict in the next episode, which there is, and Funhouse, is a fantastic episode too, but we'll talk about that. But Knight in White Satin Armor is just one of the most memorable episodes of the series. I think it's fantastic. I'm going to give it an S tier. Now, of course, next up we have Funhouse. Realistically, this could be an S tier episode too. Them killing Big Pussy when they find out he's an informant. Incredible moment in the show. Tony discovering it through his subconscious, through his dreams, I think is a very important part of it. I know some people hate the dream episodes. And this is one of the ones I think people dislike. I think there's another one they dislike more, but I think some people find the first half of the episode dealing with the dream sequences to be very off-putting. But I think this is a fantastic episode. They were nominated for an Emmy. There's a whole behind-the-scenes thing with David Chase and Todd Kessler, who each co-wrote this episode. I think Funhouse, it could be an S tier episode. I think I'm going to give it an A tier just because I love Knight in White Satin Armor. I just think that's so fantastic. I find this episode way more enjoyable. This is a great episode too, but I think I might just leave it here in A because I like Knight in White Satin Armor more. Again, when I think about season 2, this feels like the final episode to me more so than Funhouse even. So I'm going to give it an A. That might be kind of controversial, but let's leave it there. Next up, we move on to season 3, Mr. Ruggerio's Neighborhood. Right here, the thumbnail that got me not millions, but hundreds of thousands of clicks on this video. The great Caitlin. What can I say about this episode? I think it's solid. I think shifting the perspective to the FBI's perspective was a very interesting choice. It makes it a very memorable episode. The whole thing with Patsy in this episode, it sets up stuff that could potentially pay off in the finale, depending on your opinion. I think I'm going to give it a B tier. Not one of the greatest episodes of the show, but solid, very memorable, and a solid start to season 3. Next up, Proshai Livushka, the death of Livia, very important episode thematically for the show. Livia's death was not planned. They had a plot in season 3 dealing with her testifying against Tony because of the airline tickets and Tony having to make things right with her. I think they pivoted in a way that made a lot of sense, and I think obviously the death of Nancy Marchand is terrible, and I wish she had been with us longer, and I wish she had been on the show longer, but Livia leaving the series, I think, opened up space where the show could be about more than just the conflict between Tony and his mom, which even season 2 was still dealing a lot with that, even though they weren't talking. I think if she had stayed on the show the entire time, it would have kept revolving around the mother-son conflict, and I think her leaving allowed the show to expand into areas they wouldn't have gone if she had stayed on the show. Again, I'm not saying I'm glad she's gone. I wish she had been with us. I think she was a fantastic character. Olivia is one of the core characters of The Sopranos even after her death, but I'm just saying they were able to make the best of it after her unfortunate passing. So I'm going to give this episode an A. I think it's really good, and I think it sets up a lot of great stuff. Fortunate Son, another great episode. Christopher becomes a made guy, again, setting up a lot of important conflicts. This is also an episode dealing with Tony's flashback. I think that's an interesting parallel Tony growing up, his childhood, with Christopher's kind of symbolic growing up in the mob here as he kind of becomes a made man. I think it's a great episode. Jackie Jr. is featured in this. It's a fun episode. I'm going to give this one probably an A2. I really like it. Very, very enjoyable episode. Now, next up, Employee of the Month. Very controversial episode because of the ending. Some people really wish that Melfi had told Tony about, what happened to her. It's a hard episode to watch. I'll be honest. I skipped this episode on rewatches just because I don't want to see what happens to her. It's very brutal. I gave this episode an S before. I'm going to give it an S here too. I think it is so powerful. I think this is one of the most powerful episodes in the series. I think her decision to not tell Tony made this episode. It made it more than just like a power fantasy. It says so much about Melfi's character. She becomes such a powerful, strong character in this by her decision to abide by her integrity and not tell Tony. This is an episode I don't think any other show could have done. I think this is genuinely one of the most powerful things they did in the series. The show's not always going to be emotionally satisfying on every single angle to people, but I think it's more powerful as a piece of art because of that. So, Employee of the Month, getting an S here. Next up, another Toothpick. The plot with Bobby Bacala's dad, very enjoyable. The plot with Junior and the cancer, Mustang Sally. It's a fun episode. I'm going to give this one probably a B. It could be an A because it's solid, enjoyable episode, but not that relevant to everything that's coming after it. It's just a very good episode. Again, not saying it's bad, but I need to also put some more stuff in B here. I think I put more stuff in A than I did last time around just because I'm thinking about all the good memories from them. Next up, University. This is a great episode. Like, very important theme with Tracy and how she compares and contrasts with Meadow, who is privileged. She gets to go to university. Tracy's basically abused by all the men all around her, ignored by Tony. I think this is a solid episode. I'm gonna give this an A. You could say it's an S tier episode as well, just because the death of Tracy is very powerful. It sets up a lot of conflict between Tony and Ralph, and it sets up, just how brutal this show can be at times. Just a solid, very strong thematic episode, but a very dark episode as well. I think season 3 is darker than season 6. I'm just saying that right now. I think everyone says season 6 is so dark. If you look at season 3, the stuff that happens in here, Employee of the Month and University, I think season 3 is as dark as this show gets. So, and it's funny, this is pre 9/11 too. So all the stuff we say about the show getting way darker after 9/11, you can see a lot of horrible stuff even in season 3. Next up, Second Opinion. This is a good episode too. I'm just gonna give this one a B as well. I think that the whole thing with the doctor, very fun. It's fun to see an arrogant character get stomped on. It's a little wish fulfilling. The whole thing with Junior, but it's a solid episode, enjoyable. But I'm gonna give it a B tier. There's some stronger, way more thematic episodes here coming up. Next up, He Is Risen. We got a lot of stuff with Jackie Jr. in this episode. Jackie Jr. is a big part of the season, even though he's a very memed on character. I just did a video on Jackie Jr. I'm gonna give this one a B as well. I think it's good. Got a lot of good stuff in here, but I think we're gonna have some stronger episodes moving forward. Same thing with Telltale Moozadell. A funny episode, obviously dealing with AJ a lot in this episode. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one probably a B as well. Very solid, enjoyable, got a lot of good stuff in it. Tony's relationship with Gloria. I've not been mentioning it this whole season, but that's obviously a huge, part of this season, and she is Tony's most important Gumar in the series. So I'm gonna give it a B. Next up, To Save Us All from Satan's Power. One of the most confusing episodes of the series, because I did a whole video on how this episode kind of messes up the timeline of when Pussy became an informant. Weird episode when you think about they're kind of imagining Big Pussy being an informant earlier than he actually was. Some great moments in this episode, setting up Slava and the Russian, who will play a big part in the next episode, Pine Barrens. But very enjoyable episode, but I'm just going to give it a B. And you can kind of see season 3, season 2, I had a bunch of A episodes back to back. Season 3, bunch of B episodes. Very good episodes, but I don't tend to think of them as fondly as I think of season 2's episodes. Maybe that's just because season 3 is a lot darker and I don't, it's not as fun for me as season 2. But next up, we have Pine Barrens. I don't remember where I put this last time. I remember it was kind of controversial because this is like the most popular episode of the series. But because it's so popular, people either love it or hate it. Some people will think like, oh, it's overrated. I think Pine Barrens is an A tier episode. I think it's a great point to introduce people to the show. I've said this a million times, but if I was showing someone The Sopranos for the first time, I would play Pine Barrens. I would not play the pilot. Again, I think the pilot's weaker episode than Pine Barrens is. It's a solid episode. It's enjoyable. Is it kind of overplayed in the Sopranos community? Sure. And in fact, on my last rewatch, I actually skipped it just because I had seen Pine Barrens way more than I've seen any other episode of the show, just because, again, I show people the episode all the time. So it's a solid episode, very enjoyable, but I'm just going to give it an A here because we got some other great ones coming up here as well, such as Amour Fou. This is a fantastic episode. Very, very strong. Tony and Gloria's relationship kind of comes to a head here, and that's been a big part of season 3. Jackie Jr. robbing the card game is a great episode. I'm going to give it an A here just because, unlike Knight in White Satin Armor, this doesn't feel like the final episode to me. It feels like a lot of setup, which we will pay off in the next episode, Army of One, which I'm debating between S and A. I think this is a very strong episode. I think the ending scene of Cor Negrato, the ungrateful heart, and how it highlights the hypocrisy of all these guys, is a fantastic moment. Again, Meadow references I drew Jeanie Cusamano in this episode. This is very much the midway point of the series, and this is kind of a turning point for Meadow as a character in a lot of ways. Jackie Jr.'s death was very powerful, even though he's a memed-on character. I thought the way it dealt with his death was very profound. I'm going to give it an A here. I think there are stronger season finales, so I'm just going to leave it as an A here. But yeah, solid episode. But as you can see here, I kind of ranked season 3 a little bit lower. I think that's a lot to do with my personal enjoyment of these episodes. Again, I think I personally enjoy season 3 less, even though I'll argue in a lot of ways season 3 is more emotionally impactful than season 2, but that's probably just my personal bias coming through. We're all biased when it comes to these episodes. This is just my personal take on a lot of these, so you guys might disagree with me, and definitely post your guys' tier list in the Discord or wherever you want to post it. The link for this tier maker is in the description, so definitely let me know how you rank them. Now, next up, For All Debts Public and Private. This is a very strong episode, setting up a lot of stuff with Christopher and Tony. Really marks a change for a lot of people. Christopher and Tony's relationship. Tony is presented as very predatory in what he does to Christopher in this episode, but Christopher kind of fully commits himself to this life. I think this is an A episode. This is a fantastic one. Great introduction to season 4 and setting up that things are going to be different moving forward. They even have the 9/11. They took the Twin Towers out of the intro. It definitely marks a shift in the series moving forward. Next up, we have No Show. Again, very popular just because of this picture here. Meadow focused episode dealing with the aftermath of Jackie's death. I think it's a good episode. I like Tony and Meadow's conflict in this episode. I think the psychiatry scene with her was kind of weird. I don't quite know what point they were trying to make with it. I know the therapist is like a weirdo, and I don't know if it was a point that David Chase was trying to make about therapy, but I'm gonna give this episode probably a B. It's a solid episode. Got a lot of good stuff going on here, but some weird stuff as well. The whole no-show job thing with Christopher kind of having conflict with Patsy after he takes over as captain of the Paulie's crew. That's interesting stuff, but I think we'll see some stronger episodes here. Now, next up, Christopher. Very controversial episode. Some people absolutely hate this episode. I think it's solid. I like it. I like the point that Tony was trying to make at the end about not taking pride in just like your ethnicity and your race, but taking pride in your personal accomplishments. I will admit the plot is kind of goofy. It feels a little weird. A lot of people think this episode tonally doesn't fit with the rest of the show. I'm going to give this one a C. I might have ranked it higher before. I don't remember where I put it, but it's an enjoyable episode for me that I like. But I will admit, a lot of the stuff in here is not going to be that relevant to future episodes. You can kind of skip this on watch. The only thing that's really important in this episode is the death of Bobby Bacala's wife, which is a big plot point moving forward because obviously that sets up Bobby and Janice's relationship. But yeah, I'm going to go give this one a C. Next up, we have The Wait, one of the funniest episodes of the show, setting up a conflict between Johnny Sack and Ralph that actually kind of doesn't go anywhere. It kind of just ends here. I'm going to give The Wait probably a C2. It's not a bad episode. It's actually, again, like I said, one of the funnier episodes of the show. It's very enjoyable to watch. These two episodes in particular feel very, like, goofy might not be the right word, but it doesn't quite fit for me tonally going with all the other stuff going on. But it's a great Johnny Sack focused episode. One of the few Johnny Sack focused episodes we get in the series. So that's interesting. It's just not one of the most important episodes. So I'm going to give The Wait a C. Next up, Pyomai. The introduction of the horse. Tony's relationship with animals has been a big thing in this series, so much so that they did a video on it. This is another one where I'll probably give it a B. It does deal with some important themes. I think there's some stronger episodes in season 4 than this one. I'm blanking on a lot of stuff that happens in this episode besides the whole racing thing with Ralphie, but yeah, I think it's an okay episode, but there's definitely some stronger ones, such as the next one, Everybody Hurts. I think this is a very interesting episode. I think that Tony kind of trying to rationalize his behavior and trying to convince himself he's not a bad person. Very interesting episode in terms of Tony's psychology. The whole thing with him and Artie kind of gets back to what happened with Davey Scatino. Oh, you know what? I missed Bust Out. How did I miss Bust Out? Oh, I skipped Bust Out from house arrest, from Where to Eternity to house arrest. Oh my god, I'm sorry, guys. I somehow skipped this while I was doing it. I was like, I mentioned Davey Scatino and then I looked right here and I skipped it. Oh well. Okay, we're gonna put him back. Bust Out, I'm gonna give a B tier. I think it's a solid, fun episode. Got a lot going on with Tony and Davey together. But it's a good episode. I don't think I'd put it quite in A with all these other episodes I really love so much. But Bust Out's a good episode. That's gonna be a B. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. We're gonna go back. Everybody Hurts. I was saying that the thing with Artie kind of references what happened with Davey Scatino. So we're gonna give Everybody Hurts an A tier. I think this is a very good episode in terms of Tony's psychology and dealing with his thought process about who he is. And obviously we have him dealing with the aftermath of Gloria's suicide, which he feels responsible for. That he kind of compartmentalizes that by trying to be nice to cousin Brian and stuff like that. I think it's a great, solid psychological episode. Next up, Watching Too Much Television. I'm gonna give this one a B. I think this one's a good episode. I think it's pretty solid. We got the whole thing with Adriana being an informant and trying to get married to Christopher. Their fight, not one of the strongest episodes of the season. I think there's some much stronger ones, but it's a solid, enjoyable episode. You got Tony kind of trying to teach his son about where they come from, the crack house, the whole thing with Zellman, and getting the pipes out of those houses and stuff like that. It's interesting. I just don't think that plot point goes anywhere necessarily continuing on. I know the whole HUD scam, dealing with the HUD scam is a conflict with New York in this season, but it's an interesting episode, but not the absolute strongest of the season. And next up, we have Mergers and Acquisitions. An interesting episode. I think that the whole conflict between Tony and Carmela, very, very interesting the way they handle it. It's not this loud, over-the-top conflict that we would see, but the kind of quiet anger they have, or at least Carmela has towards Tony, the way she steals from the bird feeder. Again, very meme-worthy, but it also highlights how she deals with conflict, and this sets up a lot of stuff that's going to blow over in the season finale. So I think Mergers and Acquisitions is probably an A-tier episode. I really like that ending. That ending where they don't talk to each other. One of the most powerful, subtle endings of the show. I rank it very highly just because of that. Valentina as a Gumar, I have to say, I think she's probably the weakest Gumar out of the three. Arena in season 1 and 2, Gloria in season 3, and then Valentina in season 4 and 5 here, whatever. I think she's probably the weakest Gumar out of all of them. She doesn't have that much interesting plots to deal with, but she's a fun character, so I'll rank that one as an A. Number 9, whoever did this, the death of Ralphie. I think this is a very powerful episode. I think the ending is very symbolic. You can read a lot into Tony thinking he sees someone and how that relates to when Polly sees the Virgin Mary. I'm going to give this one an A. I think it's a solid episode. I don't think it quite hits S for me. It could for a lot of people. This is definitely one of the more memorable episodes of the series. Christopher's drug addiction kind of boils over into the next episode. The death of Pyomai and how that kind of relates back to Tracy, I think is a great payoff to University, which funny enough is right here too. I think solid episode, one of the best ones in the season. But I won't quite rank it as an A, or no, quite rank it as an S. Next up, we have the strong silent type. Now I remember where I put this before. I think I put it in a B tier rating. It was a fun episode. I remember I said it's not one of the most emotionally impactful episodes of the series. It's a lot of jokes, a lot of fun stuff in this episode, but it's not quite an A tier. And a lot of people got really pissed off at me just because this is one of the fan favorites. I think if you ask you what the fan favorites are, number 1 would probably be Pine Barrens, and probably number 2 would be Strong Silent Type. I think there's stronger episodes this season, guys. It's good. It's enjoyable, but it's just not that important in terms of like the plot or the emotions or the psychology going on with these characters. And I tend to rank episodes based more on that. I think I put Strong Silent Type as a B before, and that's where it's going again. Next up, Calling All Cars. I think this is a great episode. Tony's dream at the end is very spooky. The spookiest dream in the series. Not even the coma dream is as spooky as the one he has in Calling All Cars. I think if you wanted to convey a nightmare, this is one of the best episodes in the series. The introduction of Carmine Lupertazzi, he'd be an important character moving forward. I'm going to give this one probably a B2. The whole thing with Bobby and Janice, that's some great stuff. I don't think it quite hits A for me, but it's a very, very solid B episode, very enjoyable. But we've got some more episodes here that I think kind of deserve that ranking more. Next up, we have Eloise. Carmela-focused episode after Furia leaves, dealing with her depression, the way she takes it out on Meadow. This ending scene is absolutely horrifying. The way they convey Carmela's dread that she's in a relationship with Tony still is fantastic. I think I'm going to give Eloise an A. I think this is a great episode dealing with Carmela's character. Very, very relevant to what's going on in this episode and the next one here. So I'll give it an A. Lastly, for season 4, we have Whitecaps, the season 4 finale. I've said this before. This is one of the strongest episodes in the series. That fight between them is the best acting we've seen in the show ever. I know everyone has talked about Whitecaps to death, but it's just fantastic. Him leaving at the end is an incredible moment. Like, it sets up that season 5 is going to be fundamentally different while they're separated. I just think this is a fantastic episode. We also have the stuff going on with him in New York that kind of comes to an end here. That's interesting too, but I think Tony's just family life, how it deals with them separating, it's just perfect. And I think it's the perfect capstone to what's been going on with their marriage, what's been going on in mergers and acquisitions, and Eloise finally paying off here in Whitecaps. I think it's a perfect arc. So yeah, Whitecaps is going to be an S tier. Next up, we move on to Two Tonys. This is a solid episode. I think Tony looks so pathetic in this episode when he flirts with, when he tries to get with Melfi. It's a very interesting moment. It sets up the bear, which is going to be a motif this season that kind of relates back to the finale, which I think is pretty strong. I'm going to give Two Tonys probably a B. You could make an argument that it deserves to be A, but I think there's some very strong episodes this season that will take that spot more. I'm going to give Two Tonys a B here. Next up, we have Rat Pack, the introduction of Tony Blundetto, who is a controversial character. I did a whole video on that. A lot of people hate him as a character and think he's doesn't fit in with the rest of the show. I'm going to give Rat Pack a B as well. I think it's a good episode. I think I like Tony B as a character. I do think his storyline has issues that I've talked about in that video. But Rat Pack is going to be a solid B episode. And we're also dealing with, rats in this season. And, Ray Curto and all that stuff. So good episode, solid, but it's just going to be a B. Number 3, Where's Johnny? I think this is a great episode. Very meme-worthy. Obviously, the varsity athlete comment is one of the biggest memes in the Sopranos community, but I think Tony and Junior's relationship is very strong. That ending scene where he's like, "Don't you love me?" I just think is very, very powerful. So, Where's Johnny? I'm going to give an A. I think that's a very solid. Junior's dementia is going to be a big thing, moving forward into future episodes too. So, very solid episode that sets up a lot of important things in the future. All happy families. AJ, kind of dealing with the being separated, being the troublemaker. I don't know if I'll give it an A or a B. I mean B or C. I'd probably give it a C just because I think the Whitecaps plot this season is not one of my favorites. Like, I know what it's doing, and in fact, I'm actually doing a video on Whitecaps right now, surprisingly enough, as I'm recording this, but I don't look back that fondly on the Carmela Whitecaps plot. I think we could have done Carmela having an affair. I mean, not like an affair, they're separated, but I think we could have done Carmela having an affair in a little bit more of an interesting way. I think Whitecaps could have been a stronger, more interesting character if they had handled things a little bit differently. So I don't tend to rank these episodes that highly, but it's not terrible. Irregular around the margins. I got this video demonetized just because that Sopranos thing looks like a dick right here. Thanks YouTube. But I think this is a solid episode. I'll give it a B. It sets up a conflict between Tony and Christopher over Adriana that will continue to be a thing moving forward. This kind of breaks their relationship in a fundamental way. I don't think it's one of the most important episodes of the entire series. This thing between Tony and Adriana doesn't really go anywhere. But it is a solid episode that sets up a lot of stuff with Tony and Christopher. So we'll give that one a B. Next up, Sentimental Education, another Carmela Whitecaps focused episode. I'm going to give this one probably a C too, just because I don't tend to think that highly of it. A lot of fans, I think this episode's kind of boring. I think they might even put it in D tier. I don't think it's terrible. I think, could we have handled Carmela and Whitecaps better? Yes, but I think I'll just give it a C tier. Another one, In Camelot, that people hate this episode. I think people expect me to put it in D tier. I kind of like this plot between Tony and his father's Gumar. I think there's a kind of thing, how it relates back to Livia and how at the end he lies. It kind of glorifies his father and how that kind of parallels JFK with the Camelot thing. Do I think this is one of the strongest episodes of the show? No. I think I'd probably put it in C tier. I think you can make an argument that it's D tier. You know what? I might even put it in D tier too. I like the episode's the idea behind it and what it's trying to get at, but it's not one of the most enjoyable episodes, and it's actually not even the cringe angle. I know a lot of people cringe at the "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" thing, but that's not even the thing that makes me dislike this episode. It's just they could have made it a lot more interesting and engaging of an episode than it actually ended up being. So I need another D tier episode too. I don't remember if I put it in D tier before this, but I'll go ahead and put it in D just for this list. Next up, Marco Polo. It sets up a lot with Tony Blendetto. Mark's a change in his character, and I think a lot of people don't like his character arc, but I think it's okay. I would probably give Marco Polo maybe a C tier. I could see an argument for B. The whole Tony and Carmela thing and the way he doesn't kind of follow up with that is it's interesting. But I think that the Hugh and loving his son-in-law angle, I did a whole video on that, so that's interesting as well. But again, this is not one of those episodes that I think back on as like, oh, I really love this episode. It's okay, it's solid. But if I was thinking about like, oh, the episodes I really love, I don't think Marco Polo would be on that list. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a C. Unidentified Black Males is next. I think this is a good episode. Again, we talked a little bit before about David Chase and him writing about African American people. Obviously, it's a very important topic for him. I think Tony kind of coming to terms with his panic attacks and how that relates back to his feelings about his cousin. I think this is something that's been building up all season. I'm going to give it a B. Is it one of the absolute strongest episodes of season 5? I don't think so, but There's a lot of good emotional stuff here that kind of connects back throughout the entire season that they've been setting up. So I'll give it a B tier, and we'll move on to the next one, Cold Cuts. I think Cold Cuts is an A. I think this is a fantastic episode dealing with Christopher's feelings about Tony, both Tonys. I think it's a great episode with, Tony dealing with Janice and his own anger issues, and the ending scene is the worst Tony ever is in the entire series. I've said that multiple times. He's so mean to Janice at the end of this episode. He's so smug about it. I think this is just a really, really good episode. Very emotional, very self-contained because it takes place in, Uncle Pat's farm for the most part. But I think Cold Cuts is great. I really like Cold Cuts. I think it did a lot of great stuff. So I'm going to give it an A tier. Next up, the test stream. One of the ones people absolutely hate. For the people who hate Dream episodes, this is the one they hate the most. So I think it is a solid Dream episode. I think, do the dreams get kind of esoteric and weird? Yeah. Do I think the dreams are handled better in something like the Coma Dream? Yes, I do. I think that ending scene with Tony and Carmela is absolutely beautiful, and how it kind of sets up them getting back together in the next few episodes here. I'm going to give the test stream a C. I think that the way Tony's subconscious discovers that Pussy is an informant in Funhouse, I think they handled it better in that episode versus realizing that Tony Blendetto is the one who's, shot Phil Leotardo. I think it's better than this one. This is Matt Weiner. Matt Weiner wrote this episode, and some people don't like his episodes because, again, he wrote Sentimental Education as well, which a lot of people don't like. But, it's a C episode. It's okay. Got some weird imagery in it. Not the strongest dream overall, but it's not terrible. I wouldn't put it in D tier. Next up, we have long-term parking. And does anyone think this deserves anything other than S tier? It is fantastic. The ending, the send-off to Adriana, I think is sad. It's poignant. It's just fantastic. Like, I don't think anyone needs to argue with this. This is just one of the best episodes of the series, written by Terrence Winter. Yeah, just overall fantastic. I don't know what to even say about this. It's an S tier. It's self-explanatory. It's fantastic. All Due Respect, I think it's a good episode. I want to give All Due Respect a B, just because I think, like I talked before about how Night in White Satin Armor feels like the season 2 finale, long-term parking feels like the season 5 finale. All Due Respect almost feels like an afterthought. Yeah, you've got the whole thing of Tony going through the woods and returning home like the bear they set up in the first episode. I don't fully know what they're trying to say with that metaphor. There's a lot of things you could read into that. Johnny Sack getting arrested will obviously be a plot point in season 6. It's a good episode, enjoyable, but it's just not anything compared to long-term parking, the emotional resonance of that episode. So yeah, we're gonna give it a B tier. Next up, the final 2 seasons, depending on how you count season 6A and 6B, Members Only. I think it's a really great episode. I think it's one of the strongest openings of the entire series, and it's so thematic what it sets up. Opening montage sets up the time skip perfectly. It sets up Eugene's end and how that kind of relates to the finale. All the details in this episode will be weaved throughout season 6. So I think we have to give Members Only a tier rating. And this is also the Soprano log that I got sponsored by Members Only. So it has some positive associations with me just for that. Next up, we have Join the Club. Join the Club and Mayhem are the 2 Coma Dream episodes. Of these 2, I think Join the Club is a B, and I think Mayhem is an A. If I had to break it down, I think Join the Club is an interesting episode to be mostly focused on Tony's dream. I think it's a very interesting episode. I think the Coma Dream is one of the best dreams they did in the series. But if I was just breaking down these 2 episodes, I think Join the Club is a B. It's a good episode, but I think Mayhem's just a little bit stronger. The way it weaves in the real life plot as well is interesting. So that's how I'm going to break down these 2 episodes. They're kind of almost, it's kind of almost a 2-parter here. You got the whole thing with Silvio as the boss too, and that's fantastic. So yeah, I'll give Join the Club a B and Mayhem an A. Fleshy Part of the Thigh. There's a lot going on in this episode. Tony recovering, the scientist guy that he meets, Paulie dealing with his discovering about his mother. There's a lot going on in this episode. I think, honestly, I would give Fleshy Part of the Thigh a C. The whole thing with Bobby and the rapper, it's almost like there's too much going on in this episode. I feel like individually, all those plot lines, I would have liked maybe a little bit more. I almost wish they would have dropped one of those plot lines and just focused on the other ones a little bit more. I think it could have been a stronger episode. Yeah, Fleshy Part of the Thigh is not one of my favorites. I think it's a good episode, not terrible, but I think it could be done better. And next up, we have Mr. and Mrs. John Sacrimoni Request, the wedding episode. I'll give this one a B. I think it's a good episode, very enjoyable. I don't think it's quite one of the strongest episodes. There's not that much going on in it. There is stuff, obviously, with Johnny Sack, with Tony, with, Phil Leotardo. All that stuff will be important, but just not one of the most important episodes of, the final 2 seasons here. Live Free or Die. Man, a lot of people hate the Vito being gay arc. I think the Vito being gay arc kind of goes on a little bit too long. I think they stretch it out over maybe one extra episode than they needed to. I think they could have wrapped it up a little bit quicker and it might have flowed a little bit better. I think Live Free or Die is probably a C. I don't like the ending where Vito's like, he goes to this like antique store and the guy's like, oh, you're a natural, kind of implying that Vito being gay would somehow make him like this like sensitive artistic type. I think that's kind of a stereotype. There's nothing about Vito that's been coded as like he's secretly artsy or something. Honestly, that fits more like Christopher with his art obsession or his writing obsession. Vito is just a guy who likes to suck cock. There's nothing that suggests that he likes interior decorating. There's something about him liking fashion and suits, but I don't know. It's not really gay coded for me. He's a mobster who's kind of masculine other than the fact that he likes to suck guys' cocks. So I found that ending weird and stupid. I think the whole thing with them being mad that he's gay is very funny, but I don't know. It's not one of the strongest episodes of season 6A for me. Next up, Luxury Lounge. And this is an episode I do really like. I think the Ben Kingsley plot is a little... This show is kind of self-indulgent sometimes, the way it handles like actors and like Hollywood, and it's trying to like make fun of Hollywood a little bit. I don't love those angles. That's the part I like the least about D-Girl is the way it handled like the Jon Favreau stuff. I found that very cringy. Same thing here with Luxury Lounge, but I think the Artie plot is fantastic in this episode. This is a perfect culmination of Artie's character arc, and this is really the last Artie episode. He'll be in future episodes, but this is the last one that deals with him as a character, and it's focused on him as a character. So I think Luxury Lounge deserves an A just for that. I think Artie's a fantastic character, but it's just a Christopher Hollywood thing. I don't find it that engaging. The next one here, Johnny Cakes. I think this is a better Vito-focused episode than Live Free or Die. I think his relationship with this man is more believable than what we saw in Live Free or Die. I'm going to give Johnny Cakes probably... I might give it a C tier. I rank it higher than Live Free or Die, but I do find his romance with this guy kind of underwhelming. I just don't see what Johnny Cakes likes in Vito. Not just like in terms of the physicality, like not just because Vito's fat, but it's just like, what is attractive about Vito's personality that this guy would kind of fall in love with? Or maybe he's just desperate or something, but I don't know. He doesn't seem desperate. Got a lot of gay friends. It's a gay town in New Hampshire, so I think they could have handled the romance a lot better. It feels very forced to me, so I'm going to give Johnny Cakes a C. The Ride is another episode that people either love or hate. I think it's pretty good. I'd give The Ride a B. I think that sequence at the fair where Christopher's high on drugs is fantastic. It sets up the heroin addiction that's going to eventually kill Christopher. Tony, at the end with the baby and stuff. I think that's cool. Paulie, it's not one of the most important episodes of the show, but it's pretty decent. I like it. B episode. Mo and Joe. I'm gonna give Mo and Joe probably a B. I think the Johnny Sack storyline, it doesn't come to an end here. It plays out till the next season, but it's interesting with Johnny Sack, his jail time. Do I think this is one of the strongest episodes? No. In fact, I tend to kind of get confused about what happens in Mo and Joe versus like Cold Stones, which is next. These episodes kind of blend together. Honestly, I might give Mo and Joe a C, just because I find this episode very forgettable. I remember more stuff from Cold Stones than Mo and Joe, which is I'll give Cold Stones a B here. We got the death of Vito, Carmela in France. There's a lot more memorable stuff in this episode, and even Cold Stones I think is one of those episodes that people kind of don't think that highly of. I think there's some good stuff in this episode with Carmela and Rosalie, and it highlights just how negative all these characters are, like Carmela and Tony. They're just always thinking negatively about everything. So I like Cold Stones, even though I think some people probably find the Paris storyline kind of awkward and weird in ways, but I kind of get what they were going for with Carmela. So I'll rank that one as a B. And Kaisha, the mid-season finale. I think Kaisha is a very strong episode. I think I'd give it an A. It's a very cold episode in the way that it handles, Tony and Christopher together, their kind of relationship falling apart. The relationship with Juliana Skiff and Christopher, it's short, but I think it's poignant. I think it gets at stuff about like addiction and kind of comforting each other, but then abandoning each other at the end there. I think Kaisha's a solid episode. I like it. But we're in the end game here. Let's kind of move through these Soprano home movies. I'm gonna give this one an A too. I think it's fantastic. I think the conflict between Bobby and Tony is fantastic. The way he forces Bobby to kill someone at the end and know that it's not Janice's son at the end that Bobby kills. Tired of having that argument. It's just a great episode at this kind of the tension it underlines kind of families. I think Sopranos home movies is very, very solid. One of my favorite episodes of the show. Stage 5, the death of Johnny Sack. I think this is probably an A2. The movie with Christopher, and again, Christopher and Tony's relationship kind of falling apart because of it. Actually, I'll probably put Stage 5 in a B. It's a solid episode. It's just not one of the strongest compared to some of these other episodes here, but it's an enjoyable one, and we're saying goodbye to we're starting to say goodbye to a lot of characters, so I know a lot of people were sad to see Johnny Sack go. Next up, we have Remember When. I'll give Remember When a B2. A very memorable episode, very funny episode. Tony and Polo's relationship, again, everything's kind of falling apart by the end here. Do I think it's one of the strongest out of all of these episodes? No, I think there's some way stronger ones coming up here. But a solid, funny episode, enjoyable, memorable, and it does deal with relationships, which is Tony and Paulie. So I'll give it a solid B. Chasing It. A lot of people don't like this episode. They feel like it's kind of like character assassination on Tony's part. He's such like a gambling addict. I'll agree. I think they could have handled it better. I'll give it a B. I don't think it's bad. I think it is important. We're showing how Tony has kind of let his gambling addiction get the better of him. I know some people think it comes out of nowhere, but I do think they kind of set it up a little bit in previous episodes. Not one of the strongest episodes overall, but I think it is kind of powerful, and it's nice to... It's not nice, but it's interesting to see Tony kind of losing control, and his relationship with Hesh falls apart, which again, these last few episodes of the show, we are taking everything away from Tony. So I think this is a solid B episode. Walk Like a Man, come on, that's an A. We all know Walk Like a Man is an A. Dealing with Christopher's relationship with Tony and his insecurity and being picked on by all these guys. His relationship with the guys has completely fallen apart. We're contrasting that or comparing it with AJ, who is also dealing with the breakup of, Blanca and his relationship with her. I think this is a very emotionally resonant episode that sets up a lot of stuff that will pay off and will continue to be in these future episodes here. So, Walk Like a Man, very sad, but very powerful episode. Kennedy and Heidi, death of Christopher, obviously a very important episode. It happens very early in the episode too, and is more so dealing with Tony's lack of emotions over Christopher's death than, his actual emotions. But yeah, this is an A. Deals with a lot of great stuff. Tony in Vegas on drugs. I like that sequence. I like that he kind of has a profound thought and kind of loses it, which is sort of what happened at the end of Mayhem, which after his coma dream, he had this kind of profound knowledge and he sort of lost it over the course of the season. And that's kind of a theme about how life in America and life in modernity sort of eats away at your soul, so to speak. So I think Kenny and Heidi does a great job of re-emphasizing that right at the end here. Now we're in the last 3 episodes. Second Coming, a lot of conflict in this episode, a lot of setup, kind of brutal what happens to Coco. I'm going to give it an A. Really good. It sets up AJ's, suicide and depression and all that stuff. I think it's strong. It's got plot, it's got emotion, it's got excitement, setting up what's going to happen. You know, the final conflict with Phil Leotardo. I think it's great. The Blue Comet, also really good episode. I'm going to give it an A here too. Penultimate episode of the series, really strong. The death of Bobby Bacala, the war with Phil Leotardo, then going into hiding. Just a great episode. Very, very exciting, very strong. And it really does set up the final episode. And you all know where this is going, right? Do I even have to say it? S tier. We've talked about it so many times. One of the most powerful endings in all of television history, whether you love the cut to black or you hate it. Even setting the ending aside, I think the final episode in particular is just, everything in it is so strong. The way it ties back to all the emotions and what Tony's gone through throughout the entire show, setting up what's going to happen with his family, and AJ wanting to go into the army, but then going into the movie industry, Meadow becoming a lawyer and getting married. There's a kind of existential dread that hangs over the final episode. It's so powerful. That scene with him and Junior, and Kim crying, that realizing he's lost Junior. I think all of that is really, really strong. So what can we say? It is the most memorable television finale for a reason. It's just that good, and I think you couldn't have made a more perfect finale for The Sopranos than Made in America, and written and directed by David Chase, just like the pilot. So what a perfect send-off. So this is my list, you guys. Let me know what you think about this ranking. If you guys want to make your own, again, I'll include the links for that in the description. But thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be doing some more episode rankings coming up here, so stay tuned for that. Talk to you guys soon.